Welcome to EQBloom. Today we're going to explore one of the most fascinating and often overlooked connections in health, the relationship between sleep and inflammation. Most people think of sleep as simply a way to recharge energy, but sleep is more than just rest. It's when your brain and body coordinate some of their most critical repair functions. One of the most important is a regulation of your immune system. Poor sleep doesn't just make you groggy or irritable. It can actually raise levels of inflammation in the body, fueling conditions like heart disease, diabetes, depression, and even Alzheimer's disease. In this lecture, we'll dive into what inflammation really is, how sleep changes the immune response, the role of cytokines, and how chronic poor sleep worsens disease risk. Finally, we'll look at how better sleep hygiene can lower inflammation and improve your long-term health. Before we can understand sleep's role, let's define inflammation. Inflammation is the immune system response to threat or injury. Think of it as the body's alarm system. When you get cut or when you're fighting off a virus, immune cells release chemical signals that bring in reinforcements. This is acute inflammation, short-term, protective, and essential for survival. It's why a cut heals and an infection resolves. But inflammation can also turn against us. When the immune system stays switched on even without infection or injury, it produces a chronic low-grade inflammatory state. This form of inflammation damages tissues over time. It's been linked to almost every major chronic illness: cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, depression, and neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's. The question we're asking today is, how does sleep, or the lack of it, tip the balance between healthy, protective inflammation and damaging chronic inflammation? The relationship between sleep and the immune system is deeply intertwined. During deep sleep, your brain enters slow wave activity, and this is when the immune system goes into surveillance mode. Immune cells like T cells and natural killer cells increase their activity, scanning for pathogens and repairing cellular damage. But when sleep is shortened or fragmented, this immune regulation is disrupted. Studies show that even a single night of poor sleep reduces the activity of a natural killer cells by as much as 70%. At the same time, levels of inflammatory markers rise. This means the body is weakened into two ways. Defenses against infections drop, while damaging inflammatory signals increase. It's as if sleep deprivation confuses the immune system. It loses precision, becoming less effective at defense but more aggressive in producing inflammation. At the center of this process are cytokines, tiny proteins that act as messengers between immune cells. During healthy sleep, the body boosts production of anti-inflammatory cytokines, which help heal tissue and regulate immune balance. But sleep deprivation causes the opposite. It triggers a release of pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and C-reactive protein. Why does this matter? Elevated cytokines don't just increase inflammation, they also affect the brain. High levels of IL-6 and TNF-α are associated with depression, anxiety, and fatigue. CRP is a predictor of cardiovascular risk. In other words, poor sleep rewires the chemical environment of your body, flooding it with inflammatory messengers that can disrupt both physical and mental health. Let's connect the dots to chronic illness. When poor sleep becomes a pattern, the constant elevation of pro-inflammatory cytokines leads to systemic inflammation. Over time, this increases the risk of major diseases. Cardiovascular disease. Sleep loss stiffens blood vessels, raises blood pressure, and accelerates plaque buildup. Metabolic disorders. Poor sleep disrupts insulin activity, increasing the risk of obesity and diabetes. Autoimmune conditions. Chronic inflammation can trigger flare-ups in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. Neuroinflammation. In the brain, inflammatory signals contribute to depression, anxiety, and the buildup of beta-amyloid proteins associated with Alzheimer's. Think about it this way. When you neglect sleep, you aren't just tired, you're pushing your body into a constant state of stress and wear, a silent fire smoldering beneath the surface. The good news is that sleep is not just a risk factor, it's also a therapy. Studies show that when people improve their sleep duration and quality, inflammatory markers drop significantly. For example, restoring just 1 week of normal sleep after chronic sleep restriction can reduce CRP levels and improve insulin sensitivity. So how do we boost the anti-inflammatory power of sleep? Consistent sleep schedule. Go to bed and waking up at the same time each day reinforces circadian rhythms and strengthens immune regulation. Deep sleep promotion. Practices like reducing screen time before bed, keeping a cool room, and managing stress enhance slow-wave sleep, the phase most protective against inflammation. Healthy lifestyle. Hydration, regular exercise, reduced alcohol, and mindfulness lower inflammatory triggers and synergize with sleep's benefits. Sleep, in this sense, becomes medicine. Each night of restorative sleep is a dose that calms inflammation and strengthens resilience. Let's summarize what we've learned. Poor sleep pushes the immune system into overdrive, raising levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines. Over time, this fuels chronic inflammation, which contributes to heart disease, diabetes, depression, Alzheimer's, and more. Better sleep has the opposite effect. It reduces inflammatory signals, strengthens immune resilience, and lowers the risk of chronic disease. Here's the EQBloom takeaway. When you protect your sleep, you protect your body from the inside out. Better sleep doesn't just restore energy, it lowers inflammation, protects your heart, supports your brain, and builds long-term resilience. So the next time you're tempted to cut sleep short, remember, each night of good rest is one of the simplest, most powerful anti-inflammatory strategies you have.